What's that, Handsome Dave?
I'm still an internal combustion engine adherent.
Yeah, well, that's good. And welcome back to Silverfest before Dave Kranzler turns into a combustion engine. David Morgan joining us again. We saw him a couple of times today. Live Q&A. So, folks, get your questions ready. I'm not going to do too much talking here, but let these legends of the industry take it over. Mr. Kranzler, you look sharp in your hashtag Got Silver t-shirt there, I gotta say.
Wearing it years ago, as you know, but this is such a high quality shirt. And believe it or not, it's silver lined. So it's good for travel purposes because of the bacterial quality. And I've had this shirt probably a decade, but they weren't cheap, but for like, I don't know, I'll tell you, I think it was $50, but the thing's lasted 10 years and it's still perfect. So
$50 for a silver line shirt?
Yeah. Is there anything silver can't do? Is there anything that silver can't do?
Well, I'll tell you, if you really are objective, there's so many things that it does do. I mean, with risk of our friends watching this, I got one source, so I won't put it out publicly. I'll put it on your format. That, remember when the Chinese were spraying that stuff? I got it on a pretty reliable source that was a silver nanoparticle they were spraying.
Well, we could ask Dr. Rick, our mutual friend, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. I've heard, David, that he's actually Dave Kranzler is a guy David and I know. I heard him on interview years back. I believe Fox Mulder from the X-Files was based off of Dr. Rick. So,
well, who knows? I actually drove down to his place in Southern Oregon. It was a little longer trip than I planned and stayed with him for a day and a half, 2 days kind of thing. What a wonderful human being. But boy, you talk about a powerful intellect. Man, that guy's way out there.
He fell in love with Nibbles, too, which is what happens with Silver Dog, who's sprawled out over there. And anyway, as it's a pleasure to welcome you both on in here at our first Silverfest. And we have the Ask the Experts panel. Dave Kranzler becoming a little bit of an internet celebrity weekly on the Arcadia show. And David Morgan, who you know. So, folks, you can start asking your questions. And
well, there's one that says, where do you get the T-shirts?
All right, let's start with that one, David. Where do you get the T-shirts? Or is he talking about Dave Kranzler's Got Silver T-shirt? Well, you can message Yara. Check out the Arcadia Lounge. David, are the Silver Line T-shirts available?
No. The gal that made them was in the Silver Valley. And Jan Higdon is her name. And she got into the business of silver athletic clothing. Socks, shirts, shorts, all kinds of stuff. And actually had a pretty thriving business for a while. But, you know, it's kind of a high-end item type of thing. And as the silver market got more depressed, et cetera, she basically went out of business, unfortunately. But no, they're not. They're a relic. I probably only had, I'm sure, less than 100, probably less than 50 made. So.
Okay, that means it's a collector's item, soon to be like silver 1,000-ounce bars, as I hear it. Although we'll stop Silver Boy's chitter-chatter here because there are powerful questions coming in. Robert Graham expressing what's on everybody's mind. I gotta buy him the Tesla. No, Kranzler already was buying the Tesla. Robert Graham wants to know what kind of Tesla you're going to buy. What options are you?
I'm not buying a Tesla. You know, I was driving behind one yesterday, and I got up really. It was a M3 and Model 3, and I happened to, you know, the Tesla has. I mean, they're notorious for poor quality in their production and poor quality control. I noticed the trunk was not lined up. There was like one side had a higher gap in it than the other side. And I was just like, how does someone pay $50,000 for a car where the trunk can't even close properly?
Wow. Well, I'm assuming you're not selling your gold to go out and pick one up. So let's see. Have some questions coming in. David and David, how would you go about picking silver stocks? We talked about that a little bit before, but I think that was with some different folks. So obviously you are both silver stock experts, and what would be some starting points for someone who's just getting into it?
I just get the Morgan report, and then I regurgitate everything that he's recommended.
I'm not going to say Dave's doing that, but it's a pretty tight community, believe it or not. And I remember a while back that one subscriber said, I get Jay Taylor and Dave Kranzler and David Morgan and, name off three more, Jim Willie, and so-and-so likes the stock, but so-and-so does. So all that does is add to confusion. But I'm pretty basic. I mean, I learned the hard way that you don't get rich in the penny stock world unless you're a financer of them. And so I have broken it down to top tier, mid tier, and some speculations, and that served us really well. As much as I like Bob Bishop, and I truly do, but his idea of go big or go home, you put a lot of money into one of these pennies and it blows up on you. It takes a long time to earn it back. Yes, some of these penny stocks could go from 10 cents to $10, but it's rare. And it depends on the cycle. Early on in the cycle, those penny stocks, almost all of them went up, and a lot of them really didn't have that much merit. That will happen again. In fact, it'll happen probably more than it happened in the beginning of the cycle in the early 2000s, because there'll be a lot of the public that wakes up late and they come to the party late, and people love cheap stocks. They're going to put that on my tombstone. People love cheap stocks. So they'll be looking for anything with gold and silver in this name that's 25 cents or less. And those things in the heat of the moment, when we're at the very, very end of the market, and that'll be one of my clues to get out, will be, a lot of penny stock volume on stocks that are moose pasture that, the Robin Hood types are buying. So, but there are some of merit, but you got to speculate. I mean, and this is just an overview, and I'm not going to give any stock names right now, is bet a little, win a lot. And if and only if they start to meet their mission statement, then you can add at a higher price. Now, that sounds backwards, but I'll give you a quick example. I had Western Copper on the list as a speculation. And I won't lie, I forget the exact price, but it was sub-dollar. And so I'm going to just pick a price, 60 cents. Then it changed its name to Western Silver. So the price immediately went to $1 because silver is sexier than copper. But when they discovered the Peñasquito project, the stock was around 210. Now, I said bet a little to win a lot, bet as much as you can afford to lose. But once I knew the Peñasquito deposit was there, then it's a back of the envelope calculation. Is 210 undervalued or overvalued? Unbelievably undervalued. So I said, you're safer to buy it now that we know we have a discovery than betting on it before when I put it on the list. So I don't think too many people teach that, and I'm not trying to, blow up my chest. Believe me, I've made a lot of stocks on the penny side that went from wherever to zero. Believe me, I have. But I also have done it from an educated way that if you have 10 and 6 go to zero, and I never had it that bad, but 3, triple, and 1 goes up 40 times, you still made money. People don't get the idea if they model their portfolio correctly and they have discipline. You could actually, in theory, have 9 losers and 1 winner, still make money. But if you get that favorite stock, it's the same symbols as my mother's maiden name, or, all the stuff that people do, and you load the boat on one particular story because it sounds so great, good luck. It usually doesn't work out.
Yeah, and that is really good insight there. We can dig a bit more into that. Although, Nick...
sorry to interrupt. I like to hear what Dave Kranzler has to say. I'd rather listen to him than listen to me.
Well, I have something...
No, I mean, you covered a lot of bases there. Western Silver, man, you're dating yourself there.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that David says. I think a key thing is, and I think what was underlying there is also your entry point. I mean, we've had, since... well, really, say in the last 9 to 12 months, a lot of what I think are ultimately, that started out, a lot of stocks that started out as penny stocks I've noticed GR Silver is one that's been talked about a lot in here. And I don't even remember how I heard about that one, but I put it in my newsletter when it was under 20 cents, and it ran up like where it's run up now. And it's just like, man, it's discounting $50 silver already at this price, in my opinion. And so I wouldn't necessarily enter it. I wouldn't enter it here until the price of silver moves higher or they prove that they can expand their resource successfully. I mean, I look at a lot of companies and analyze a lot of companies the way I like to analyze them, and it's probably a little bit different than what David likes to look at. But I get ideas from talking to CEOs of a lot of different mining companies. I get ideas from, several companies have now started up these webinars, which are great, especially for the retail investor, the Zoom video conferences. And there's been a few stocks that I would have never looked at, except, I was on the mailing list for a Zoom video presentation. I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that looks really interesting. And a lot of the stocks, I just, I'll see a news release for a stock I might not have heard of before, and I'll go to their website and look at it and try and decide if I think it merits an investment. I think David brings up a good point about, that occasionally I'll use the go big or go home model, but I have to feel really confident about something before I do that. And, I think an important point that the audience should be aware of is that, these stocks that are, I call them, the exploration juniors, I call them venture capital stocks. That's basically what they are. Mm-hmm. And there's a very low percentage extremely low percentage of them that will ever advance their project successfully to a mine or get taken over. And so you need to be aware of that when you invest in these stocks, that the junior exploration, or even some of the junior developments. I mean, there's a lot of companies that still will, like Treasury Metals, they still throw out there, look, we haven't made a construction decision yet. Now, I think there's a good probability that they're going to, I'd say it's 99.5% certain they're going to convert their project into a mine, but they still want that proviso out there. Look, we still haven't made a mine construction decision yet, which means there's still that risk that it won't happen, embedded in the company. So I think if you're going to have some success other than just get lucky because you happen to catch the market in an uptrend in this sector, you need to do a lot of legwork and collect information from a lot of sources.
Or they can just get the Morgan Report and the Mining Stock Journal. Although still, even in addition to that, I think what you're saying is very valid of, just getting different perspectives and, finding people who resonate and seeing different things that people look at. Dave and David, we may have to bring Nick Bralia. I'm going to pronounce it Bralia until I find out any further. My man Nick is on fire. Maybe you can remind me of the one from this morning, but we have from Nick, when JP Morgan traders finally get busted, why won't they be able to trade on the COMEX? Because all of their money will be tied up in bonds.
Nick, that's a good one.
Nick, you just for yourself the silver trifecta, which is a copy of David Morgan's The Silver Manifesto, a copy of the Big Silver Short, and an ounce of silver. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get like a mining stock edition thrown in for free there. But he had another great one this morning. Maybe someone can remind me. All right, we have a question. Robert Grant, I read Silver Manifesto and Second Chance. For a very simple retail investor like myself, generally speaking, what order should I sell my explorers, developers, juniors, majors to maximize returns during the rally?
Well, we outlined in Second Chance several methods to do it. I mean, trying to pick a tippy top is an amateur's game. Trying to pick the very bottom is an amateur's game. Anyone that's professional tries to get in within 20% of the bottom and 20% of the top. I'll try to make this story quick. It's pretty enlightening. I really a little remiss to give it because the idea that you can get rich quick is proven it can happen, but it's rare. So there was a story in Forbes probably 40 years ago. Guy was a professional commodities trader, did better than average. About 99% of people in futures lose. So please, remember that fact. So he took a year off and he looked at all his trades and he just basically stayed away from the market, forced himself to stay out, looked at every trade he made, studied even harder, and he had a new plan. And his new plan was to take the middle. And the middle meant that the trend was extremely well established, was going parabolic, and he was going to get in and get out. So he actually made a trade in silver, and he bought in at something around 17, 18 and got out at 35. Well, when you're leveraged, 5 to 1 or 10 to 1 in the futures market, and you do that, he was only in for about 7 trading days, but it would gone parabolic, and he took the middle. So he didn't get in the bottom, he didn't get in the top, and he didn't stay around too long. He sold too early, and he banked it and quit. He stopped. He was done. He went home and told his wife, "We're out." She goes, "Oh, we're out of the position," because she knew what a futures trader's life is like. And he said, "Out. We are done. We are retired." So that was a 7-day trade. Now, will that happen again in silver? It could. And I'm not telling anybody to do that. What I'm trying to emphasize here is that if you've got to go in with a plan. So whoever asked that question, I can't tell you what your plan is. But when David Smith and I wrote Second Chance, we gave you several. Now, to thine own self be true. I'm not planning to get out at the very top. I've been very lucky, skillful, or both to call the top all the way up. If I get the next top, it'll be pure luck. But I'll be looking for my subscriber base, how many are pouring in. I'll have to turn off the consulting feature because I just can't do it anymore because I'm getting 12 requests a day. And the penny stocks are going wild, and all of a sudden they asked me back on MSNBC, which I was banned from when I said the only bubble is the bond market, and they cut me off mid-sentence and said they had technical errors. So when they asked me back on MSNBC, it's the top.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Dave Kranzler, Nick's other great joke from this morning was, now that New York's in lockdown, what will JP Morgan traders be doing?
What?
Insider trading.
That's
clever.
That's a good one.
That's funny.
Nick has already won. He just got himself a silver trifecta, 2 Kennedy half ounces from this morning. So, Dave and David, did you see that Ben Bernanke is actually logged into Silverfest?
I did see that. Helicopter Ben, welcome.
Say hello in the chat room again, please. There's Tom.
Jay Powell is also in here.
Yeah, and Tom's asking, are you going to helicopter more money, Ben? Ben, could you answer that? Dave and David, I'd also like to let you know before we take the next question that I now have 3 artists who have claimed that from start to finish, they can make the silver chopper Ben, which I think we've discussed the importance of this, but a silver figurine, about 5 or 6 ounces of Ben Bernanke in a helicopter throwing $1,000 bills out there. It's going to be the perfect paperweight. And Dave, maybe you want to get one for the girlfriend there, and women love. Let's see what Ben Bernanke is saying. Listen, you can't throw silver from a helicopter. So, question on something you raised. You mentioned that if you're just hitting those junior minor penny stocks kind of hard, the only one who wins is the financiers. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, although what about in the scenario that, all right, manipulation gets overwhelmed, whether it's next week or next year or 5 years from now? What happens? Because I remember in Doug Casey's book, he says between 1962 and 1968, when the price of silver doubled from about $1.09 to $2.50, the average silver penny stock, the average went up 150x, not 150%. But 150 times. So if we finally, I guess maybe we'll make it a two-parter. A, do you think we are one day going to see a move to 50 or 100 or something like that? And what happens to those penny stocks if someone happens to get their timing right and be holding it during that? Mr. Cranford, would you like to take this one first?
I mean, yeah, I think we're going to see minimally $50 on silver. How high it's going to go, I don't think anyone is going to be able to successfully predict. I would probably, the way that I would probably do it is kind of figure out where I think gold's going to go and where, who knows. I ultimately think that there's going to be a global monetary system reset. They'll revalue the price of gold up to some incredibly high level measured in dollars. And at that point, we may not even be measuring gold in dollars. And then silver will key off that. So, silver technically is an older form of money than gold is even. So I think that the monetary reset will involve reincorporating gold and silver back into the monetary system. And I've concluded that silver is the money of democracy, right? Because rich guy, you got to have a lot of money to accumulate a lot of gold, but the average guy like us, we can afford to buy silver, and we'll be able to afford to convert our dollars into silver, when there's a reset. So to me, silver is the money of democracy. But I think, as I kind of mentioned a little earlier, I think a lot of these juniors have already discounted. I think they've discounted a move that in silver that's even higher than where silver is now. So now that's not to say that when silver pushes over 30, which I think it could before the end of this year, that the juniors that everyone's done well on and for the last 6 or 9 months are not going to go a lot higher. I think they will. The interesting thing about gold and silver is that the cost to get it out of the ground is fixed, right? So at a point, every percentage that gold and silver move higher, that amount of money falls to the bottom line for producers, and it also makes the silver and gold in the ground that juniors have, that they've all discovered successfully, a lot more valuable and a lot more valuable. Like there's a leverage effect there. So, just again, to just throw GR silver out there as an example, because a lot of people have been talking about it today. I don't even know I'll tell you where it closed on Friday. I think it closed around 58 cents, so silver moves to 50. You probably see GR silver go to, I don't know, $3 or $4, and so, are we going to get a 150x move if silver makes a huge move? I don't know. What I would argue is just from a just kind of a theoretical perspective is, 30, 40, 50 years ago or whatever the time period was when that example was given, there was a lot less people and a lot less money chasing these stocks. So there's a lot more money and a lot more people who are of knowledge that know that this is an area that can be potentially lucrative. And so I think that the prices that you see in these mining stocks have already discounted expectations for higher prices in gold and silver than we might have seen them discount even 20 years ago when I jumped into the market. So some of these stocks will have incredible moves, though, like mind-blowing moves. And those will be the stocks that make, there's still some discoveries out there to be made. And if you're a junior, it doesn't take a huge discovery to make your 10-cent stock be worth $10.
Dave, would you like to comment on that one?
Yeah, I think Dave covered it well. At the top of the market, as I said earlier, there'll be a blow off. And so a lot of these stocks, these penny stocks particularly, will be, 10 cents one day and $1 10 days later. And again, that's a signal to me that you better start taking some profits and take them now. Think about what Dave said, and I'll just expand on it. you know, you go back to what you talked about was the Spokane Stock Exchange, and all those criminals are serving time right now. I'm joking, but that was that time period. The point I'm making now is that, as Dave said, everybody and his brother-in-law's cat has an E-Trade, Ameritrade, TD account. Everyone's got an account on the stock exchange off their computer. They might only have a $200 account balance or $2,000 or whatever, and I'm not trying to belittle anybody for their net worth. I don't judge people on what they're worth. I judge them on what they're worth. But the idea being that they're too lazy to find a coin dealer, or maybe the market's dried up so much that the premiums are so high on physical that they don't want to do it, or they can't do it. And so I think the rush into the paper market will be beyond belief this time. Because if I'm right, and people like Dave Kranzler, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but if the general consensus of belief that we have about fiat failure is true, and it certainly is coming to be a fact, the run to protect yourself at the very end is going to be astronomically huge. And since almost everybody has access through their phone or their computer to buy stocks, I think that's where the major moves are going to be. And again, people love cheap stocks. So I think you could see some huge numbers. I don't want to say 150x, but I will say 10x will be a bad move compared to the end. I see, you know, the 20, 30, 40 baggers on probably moose pasture over in Idaho. Once they I'm almost, in fact, I'll just go one step further. I own the domain Silver Speculator. And I'm thinking about opening that up at a high price, like $1,000 a year type of thing. And all I would do is create a database based on volume of every stock that says silver in its name that's under $1. And all you get is the database from me. Just buyer beware. But I don't know. I don't have the time or the energy, but I do own that domain. So back to you guys.
Well, I appreciate that. Part of the fun, if anyone wonders why I'm giggling, I'm sitting here and we're hearing high-level analysis on what I personally believe will, in history, be the greatest asset price move we've ever seen. Well, to my right, I see Ben Bernanke sending messages to my dog, whose head has popped up on the left. And then there's David's in the middle, and it's I guess that's the point of being here, and I wanted everyone to have fun, and I'm just having fun, and it's nice that all these things are happening. Speaking of fun, Mr. Dave, I still sometimes giggle. I remember that time the Zero Hedge guy kept calling you Dave Kranzel. DR. And I remember I emailed you about it. Whatever you wrote back was just such a classic Kranzler response. Although Ben Bernanke in the chat room, if you or not Jerome Powell wants to chime in on this, in the last 6 months out of the Fed, we've seen quantitative easing. Actually, let's take a step farther back, because we have people in the audience and speakers that have been sitting around waiting 50 years for a Sunday night announcement. I think there was so much going on at the time that it happened and people almost didn't even realize it. But what happened in March was just as historic to me as what Nixon did 50 years prior. Then a week later, unlimited QE. A couple months later, 0% interest rates forever. Now he actually got out there a week ago with a straight face and claimed that the solution is to raise the inflation target. Outside of him just like taking his pants off or just like squawking like a chick. What do you do next week to one up that?
I'm silent. I'll let Dave Kranzler answer. I don't know.
This one is beyond the silver guru. Is like no one can. I mean, I think the only step left is to send Bernanke out there and drop the rebate checks for the next stimulus package. Dave, I mean, what could they possibly say this week?
We have it all under control. Everyone go back to sleep.
Ben Bernanke is in the chat room. He says Jerome Powell is going to go topless. So we will see. I guess we'll leave that question at that. I mean, there may not be an answer even for the greatest analysts in the world of what else could the Fed do at this point. So,
instead, the thing is, I really don't. I can't really stand watching these guys on TV. And Powell. The guy's not even a trained economist, and so I don't even know. Well, I think I have my ideas of why he was selected to be the head of the Fed, and some people might think it's conspiracy theory, but I keep looking at him, and I'm like,
you can't just leave these details out. Come on, let's hear the theories of why he made it into the Fed. Don't tease me like that. Come on,
we'll save that.
Nibbles wants to hear
it. I look at this guy, and he's sitting there, and he stares into the camera with a straight face. And tries to tell us that they're going to use inflation averaging. And since inflation's been running below their average rate for a while, it's okay for inflation to run, above their average rate. And the thing that I keep wondering to myself, because I have to assume he's at least got a fairly high degree of intelligence and education. Does he realize that people like us and, people who are, reasonably well educated or who are street smart and understand what's going on, they're looking at him and saying, this is the most idiotic policy I've ever heard in my life come from a central bank. Yeah, we're going to create inflation. How is that possibly a good thing? How is it possibly good that I get to pay more for a loaf of bread next week than I'm paying this week? It's just absurd. And I don't understand how he can get up there and read the teleprompter and keep any kind of self-respect or dignity, because people like us, and there's a whole body of people like us out there, we know he sounds like a complete idiot. He's making a jerk out of himself.
David Morgan, since clearly Dave Kranzler's holding back on how he feels about Jerome Powell, hopefully you'll open up and give us your real thoughts here.
Well, Bernanke was just as bad.
Who do you think did more damage? Is that?
Oh, Greenspan, I think. He wrote that treatise on gold in 1966, and
66, phenomenal too.
Ayn Rand, devotee for a while, and of course, I knew when he got in the Fed that he couldn't be himself, whatever that means. But I had no idea. Every time I wrote about Dr. Greenspan in the Morgan Report, the whole time I called him Dr. Green Expand. I never ever wrote the word Greenspan. I always wrote expand, Green Expand. And he did, I think, the most damage, and he knew it. It's so interesting as a character study, or for me at least, to look at him, knowing what he really does know, what he really has said, and what he actually did to destroy the system, really. And, it would have happened without Greenspan. This lack of integrity in the monetary system always ends badly. We have all of history, as I've said so many times in interviews, can't guarantee anything in the financial markets. But the one thing I can guarantee is that every fiat so far has failed. It's a 100% record. So if you think that this fiat system won't fail, it'll be the first time in 5,500 years of recorded monetary history that it doesn't.
Yeah,
well, it's already failed. It's already failed.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, fortunately, Alan Greenspan has just entered the chat room. Is there any chance Herbert Hoover is logged in? If he is, we have some questions for him. Barack Obama and Ben Bernanke's idol. Also, Genevieve Carrier has a great idea, inflation drinking game. Maybe you could, but actually that probably wouldn't be safe to start drinking every time they print money, because we have some alcohol poisoning.
You don't mind me jumping in. These questions are coming fast. Someone just asked, it's almost off the screen. Dear Daves, what's the chance of a 2011 type of move? It will be bigger than a 2011 type of move. This is the third leg up. This is what I've been harping on for years, that 90% of the move comes the last 10% of the time. I mean, silver went from the $1.30 monetary value in 1965 or 64 all the way up to $50 intraday, January 19th, 2000 or 1980. This time, the last time it went from $6 in January 1979 to $50 January 1980. That's an 800% increase in 1 year. In 1 year. So silver is going to double, redouble, and double again. It may even double after that. So you're going to see this parabolic move you never see. I'm convinced, and maybe I'm just blowing smoke. I don't know. The market knows more than me. I've said it 1,000,000 times or 500,000 times. But where are you going to go? When your food prices are going up 30% a week or 30% a month, and then it's 30% a week, what are you going to do? You're going to buy more food if you're broke, and if you have any money, any savings at all, you're going to cash out the 401k, you're going to cash out the IRA, you're going to go down and find some gold and silver, and you're going to walk in and find out it's a 4-month wait. So then you're going to go to your, blank trade account, because I don't want to say Ameritrade, Scottrade, E-Trade, or whatever, because they're all about the same. And look for those stocks that are silver and gold stocks. I really believe, from all of my work is studying psychology, when you're buying because you don't want to die, as a metaphor, the run to the metals is going to be like nothing we've ever seen. We've never had the opportunity where it's a worldwide problem and everybody's got access to communications. The only thing that could stop it, in my view, is a complete shutdown of the system where they don't allow trading on the stock exchange. And I don't think that's going to happen. So, I mean, I know I sound super hyped up, but really no one, I should say no one, the person that asked that question, 2011, that's a warm-up compared to what I see ahead.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add to that, but I completely agree with that.
That makes a lot of sense to me. David, you had a great question from Chris Marchese a few lines ago, where he asked, does it seem like the manipulators are more fearful of silver than gold? I'll offer a quick comment before tossing it over to you guys. In ways that I don't know I could consciously put into words, I feel that even as much time as I've spent or people I've talked to, that there's somehow, just my gut feelings, so take that as you will, but that there's more skeletons in the closet buried with silver. And my guess is if we knew what was really going on behind the scenes, there's a lot of reasons that these guys will do disturbing things to keep the price of silver in check. So I thought that was a interesting question from Chris. Do you think these guys are more worried about silver than gold?
Yes, but I want to qualify it a little bit. I think they see the inevitable, and which means that at some point it's just going to run. Basically, when these guys control the market or manage it, if it starts to be a runaway market, they step aside. And they let only the retail investor in, and then they let it exhaust because they don't have infinite money, but the banks do. So they let the retail investor exhaust it on a spike, and then so they sell the minimum, because for every buyer there has to be a seller, and then they wait. And now that there's no money left to buy, the banks are all on one side, so they start to sell, and the retail investors that are at the top of the spike, they don't have anything to do except sell. They cannot buy anymore. They're out of money. So as it starts to work against them, they're real anxious to sell and take their profit until it gets to like a break-even point. Now they're getting margin calls. So this whole thing is a rigged game. It's been that way forever. I mean, why should a real true hedger, in my view, should get a discount? It's true in the wheat market. It's true in the metals. And, Gata made a point about this, and is it right or wrong? I think it's okay if you really manufacture, if you really produce wheat, that you have a different capital base because you actually produce it. But for a bank to get a discount on their futures position over the hedge fund or a retail investor is ludicrous. They've got infinite money behind them. I mean, if you sit down at a poker table and you've got your $1,000 buy-in, and the guy across from you's got $1 million buy-in. What are your chances of winning the game? I mean, let's think about it.
Yeah, I don't know if they necessarily fear gold running up, as more than or less than silver, or so they fear silver more than gold. I think, and who knows if they even feel fear over this. I mean, they're in an untenable position. And the thing is, we don't really know what the banks have on the other side of their massive shorts. We don't even know how big their short positions are. We can only speculate how big their shorts are. To what extent have they, hypothecated the gold and silver that's sitting in the vaults? Well, it's mostly gold. I would say that on a relative basis, they have a bigger problem with silver than they do with gold, just because it's a smaller market. And, a lot of the silver that gets produced gets depleted. It gets used in industrial processes, right? So, I mean, every ounce of gold that's ever been produced throughout history sits above the ground somewhere, except for the gold that's sitting in people's teeths, with fillings that have been buried. So there's a more ready supply of gold for them to at least attempt to fulfill their short obligations. But I mean, at some point, this thing's going to completely blow up in their face anyway, and it's going to be kind of one of those it is what it is things for them, I think. I will say, though, I suspect that some of the bigger banks that understand, they know that they understand what's going on better than we do because they get to see both sides. I think a lot of them have probably accumulated, their own stock of physical gold and silver that they keep in vaults all around the world.
Yeah, and fortunately, the quality, well, maybe it's not growing, diminishing of our investment audience, because now, in addition to Alan Greenspan and Ben Bernanke and Jerome Powell, Janet Yellen, Jamie Dimon, and Homer Simpson have logged into the chat room. So if any Warren Buffett is here too. Dave Transfer, Warren Buffett said gold is a pet rock. Would you care to field that one?
I mean, all you need to know is his father was a gold bug and advocated a gold-backed monetary system. I think Warren Buffett probably thinks differently in private than he espouses in public.
I don't think calling Howard Buffett a gold bug, is like truly capturing it. He was like it was like Ron Paul style.
Oh, yeah.
Bug. So the idea that Warren, when he pulls a Ben Bernanke on the matter, seems peculiar. So, all right, I'm going to look for another question. Who's got a question for the Daves in here?
Someone asked me to comment on the load system. It's a silver-backed and gold now cryptocurrency. The URL is ag.lode.one. You can watch some of the videos. I'm involved, so I'm biased. It was the only crypto that I'm aware of that was started with absolutely zero fiat. You couldn't buy it with Bitcoin. You couldn't buy it with any crypto. You couldn't buy it with any currency. You had to put in a founder's amount of silver, which was 100 ounces minimum. And we started the whole project on that. It's up and going. It's been a lot longer than we wanted, but it's up and just about finished, meaning these things are always a work in progress. What I mean by almost finished is we're probably within 2 or 3 months of getting a virtual debit card associated with the silver that's loaded into the system. A virtual card means you get a Visa number, but you don't have the physical plastic card, but you could use it for online purchases. Once that's tested and the bank's backing that, bless it, then they will go ahead and issue the physical debit cards if you want to have one against your account. So pretty high on it. I think it's really good for the millennials and a lot of people that are unbanked that don't have access to banks, like a lot of the Mexican population, a lot of the Indonesian population. Look, my goal is to bring honest money to the planet. I mean, you want to talk about idealism. I'm like the top tier idealistic, moron. I mean, I'm that passionate about having fairness throughout the entire structure. And it's so upside down, and it's so wrong, and it's so unjust, and it's so corrupt. But that doesn't mean I can't fight for it, and I've tried, to make it better, and I have. And this is one way I see of getting the word out to a lot of people, and a lot of people that are paying like VAT on silver that they shouldn't be paying. But believe me, the more I look into silver, and Dave touched on it too, is, if there's ever been a repression in the monetary system, it really hasn't been on the gold side. Now, I've got a bunch of books in this library about gold suppression, and a lot of them read well and they're probably accurate, but nothing's more suppressed than letting people have power. And that's why they took silver away from the people. So if we get the people to buy silver and understand money, which is a real hard nut to crack, if we get them to understand it, we get the power back.
Yep, I agree with what you're saying there. We have a question here from Stuart Englert, author of the book Rigged. Provided a lot of evidence. He spoke a lot with data before publishing that book. Great book, and really good man too. And he asked, will J.P. Morgan liquidate its physical silver to prolong the manipulation? So I'll make this into a two-parter. I think a lot of people referenced Ted Butler believes that J.P. Morgan has up to 1 billion ounces. They've never told me, so I think a lot of what Ted says makes sense. I don't know for sure. So, A, do you think J.P. Morgan has a large stash? And B, would they liquidate it to prolong the manipulation?
I mean, I kind of already answered that question. I think, I would say they definitely do. I don't know if you remember, but it was, there was in the news, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer. They were building depositories in Singapore and Hong Kong and Shanghai. So that's why I say I think they keep it in vaults around the world. I think it'll get to the point. We know gold gets dumped on, physical gold gets dumped on the market to manipulate it on the LBMA. I don't know that silver gets dry. I think they just dropped paper silver on the market to manipulate it. I don't think they dropped physical silver on it. If anything, what happens is physical silver becomes scarce. We just went through a period like that not too long ago where, Silver Eagles and, minted coins were on back order for quite some time. So I think it'll get to the point where, if they are dumping silver on the market to manipulate it, and again, they don't need to do that on the COMEX, they just need to dump paper, and that pushes the price down. I think they know, if they unload some of their physical holdings, they'll never get it back, because there will come a point where you're not going to get it back, period.
David?
Slightly different take, but not entirely. It's very interesting what Dave said. So I'm trying to type at the same time. CRYPTO. I don't want them to think I don't have at least 100 IQ. It's interesting. I was actually touring the Delaware Depository, and John Potts, who really founded the company, was giving me a tour by himself, he and I won't tell you the whole thing. Was very interesting. And I came back into their main office, and the VP mentioned just casually to me that did I know JP Morgan was building a depository in Hong Kong? And the answer was no, that's news to me. So I don't think it's the quantity that some people state, but fact is I don't know. Knowing how the market operates, it's pretty hard to take that kind of offtake and still keep the price as low as it's been. And the other part of it is to see how much silver was coming in from the bullion banks into the market. I've seen the registered category down as low as 38 million ounces, and we're far above that now, and the eligibles are huge relative to what they were a few years ago. So not saying they don't, I don't think so. I'm more conservative on what they truly have. And if they have the amount that some people suggest, they could make it on both sides if there's that much physical. The reason being is that the deficit in silver between 1990 and 2006 for 15 consecutive years averaged 100 million ounces a year. And so if you had that type of dynamic in the silver market again, that means it could repress the market for 15 years. Well, let's say it's double that. Okay, then they could repress the market for 7.5 years. Let's say it's triple that. They could suppress the market for 5 years. So I don't see that. I don't know. There's no guarantee. If they had that much silver, they could make as much money on the short side as they could on the long side. Anytime someone went long, they wanted to dump a bunch of physical to satisfy the delivery demand, they could do it and drive the price down, knowing ahead of time that they were going to send the market down. So, I think they probably have their own stash, but I pretty much believe the market as it's shown on the COMEX. I followed the warehouse receipt report for years. Tip a hat to Ted Butler. Ted was kind enough in my early beginnings because I didn't know that much about the Commitment of Traders report. And I would say I don't remember exactly. I say Ted spent 2 hours with me on the phone, giving me that generous with his time. And man, I asked him every question 12 times from Sunday until I got it. And then I studied it further from that point. But, we owe a lot to Ted for, in that arena, as far as I'm concerned. But as far as, how much do they really have? I don't think it's as much as, as some people do. And am I right or wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. No one knows. I think $1 billion sounds high also, but, there's just no way to know for sure. And the market is intentionally opaque.
Yes.
And every time they say they're going to make it more transparent, it becomes even more opaque. Right. So they do that. It's intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that does seem to be the case. And fortunately, active session in the commentary here because, hey, Ben Bernanke, Dave Kranzler, he wants to print #JustPrint t-shirts.
Just print. That's a good one. I need 2 t-shirts. I need a got silver.
He had another one, #GotUSD. That's the t-shirt he has. I thought that was funny.
Bernanke also wants a silver helmet. It appears Ben Bernanke knows how to spell silver. Donald Trump has also logged into the chat saying he is saving the world one Nobel Peace Prize at a time. So an active commentary here with a lot of celebrity guests. I have one final question. Oh, Eric Sprott logged in too and talking to Homer Simpson. All at Silverfest 2020, I might add. Can't find this anywhere else. Did have a somewhat serious question, perhaps to wrap it up. Someone asked your thoughts on JFK talking about wanting to end the Fed shortly before his death. Anyone want to take a stab at that?
Well, I think he did. I mean, it's obvious if you read that, and I forget what the executive order was. It's like 10 and 10, 11 or something like that, 101011, I think. Anyway, you can look it up. But what I do want to make clear, and you know this, Chris, because we've talked online and offline, and both Ed G.F. Griffin and myself have researched it quite heavily. That was not a silver-backed currency. It was a U.S. Treasury note. And whether or not he had in mind to back by silver later on, maybe he did, but no one could read his mind. And but the U.S. Treasury note is where we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to hand over the printing of our currency to any foreign power. And, of course, we did with the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. So anyway, I think I've said enough there. I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Well, you know, even Woodrow Wilson, who was the president when he approved when he signed the Federal Reserve Act, after he left office, and I mean, I've only seen the excerpts. I haven't read his memoirs or his biography, but he expressed regret and fear over what he had done in terms of signing the Federal Reserve Act. So I had forgot that Kennedy had wanted to end it. So
yeah, here it is.
It's another conspiracy theory for you.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to, Dave. That's at the top. It says United States note. Doesn't say Federal Reserve note. You notice the Treasury stamp is in red, not in green. But nowhere on there does it say anything about silver. And that's what you're looking at. This is like a receipt. Well, it isn't, but the old one will. I'll get to the silver certificate, and you'll see.
I gave Chris one of those the other night.
It says, for the bearer on demand, $1 silver within the Treasury of the United States. So this is what a silverback currency receipt looks like. And that is what a United States Treasury note without the Federal Reserve looks like. And they didn't print too many of these before Mr. Kennedy had a dull day in Dallas.
And here's a gold-backed $5 bill. And it says, redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve Bank. And this was printed in 1928.
And there's where we're going to. This will buy you.
Well, I suppose the only way we could truly wrap this up is by pointing out that in the chat room, Homer Simpson is saying that David Morgan is a true patriot, which I would agree with. Dave Kranzler, yourself as well.
That means a lot.
I thank you both. You've been great role models and teachers for me along my journey. It's been a pleasure getting to know both of you, and to have you both on this panel for Silverfest is quite special for me, and I think people out there are enjoying it as well. Fortunately, Ben Bernanke was there. I think he was listening. Maybe he understands gold. If you guys helped explain gold to Ben Bernanke, I mean, that's really like a universe-changing event right there. So thank you, fellas. And we're going to do a silver giveaway in the Silver Sands booth. So if either of you feel like taking any questions, video booth style, I'm going to be hopping in there, and come on in and join us if you're free. And in either case, I thank you for being a part of this panel today.
A lot of fun. I'm glad you put me with Dave Kranzler. I don't get to listen to him often enough. I'm going to try and make more time. I don't want to make this too much about me. But, I used to be, with some help, and really I've been so blessed with the people that have helped me. But, I could, like, in a week kind of catch up. But now it's like every hour something's changing so fast. It's like if I sleep at night, I'm going to miss something important. It's just crazy.
Well, David, that's why you can catch the Denver Dave Weekly Silver and Gold Market Update. It looks like now is going to be airing every Thursday night. Does that sound about right to you, Handsome?
That's fine.
So we're moving Dave to Thursdays. Anyway, you can hear I get him riled up once a week. And in either case, it's been a lot of fun having you both on here. And thank you for being here. And
thanks for having me on here. And David, it was great being on the same panel with you.
Thank you very much. It was fun for me,
folks. And I'll be heading over to the Silver Sands booth. Come meet Keith Anderson, one of our sponsors here tonight. Win some free silver. Learn about Silver Sands. Ben Bernanke might show up. Maybe Alan Greenspan too. And I will see you there.